Got to listen to how they're selling this, because I want to play for everybody what Republican Congressman Pete Sessions had said, and the comments, they pretty much speak for themselves. Take a look.
Sure.
What we're trying to accomplish is to end eligibility of food stamps that compete against those families, those needy families that we talked about, for rapists, pedophiles, and murderers. Whether rapists, pedophiles, or murderers will be eligible. But it's pedophiles, murderers, rapists, those who should have enough money.
What's your response to that, Goldie?
I think it is a systemic or institutionalized demonization of our nation's poor. You know, to say that people who are poor also happen to be disproportionately rapists or murderers, well, that simply isn't the case.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. What you just heard is, according to our next guest, our friend Noel Sheppard, Associate Editor at Newsbusters.org, another example, yet another example of MSNBC or NBC News selectively editing comments made by a person, whether it be George Zimmerman or Mitt Romney, or in this case, Congressman Pete Sessions, a Republican from Texas, to distort what they're saying. Hello, Noel. How are you?
Okay, how are you, sir?
Well, good. You broke this huge news today at Newsbusters, and I'm glad we have a chance to talk about it. What you just heard, obviously, as you're well aware, was how MSNBC presented what Congressman Sessions said. Why don't you talk about that, and then we do have the remaining two sound bites. So go ahead. Before we play them, how'd you become aware of this? And here we go again, right?
Yeah, this is really quite extraordinary. I mean, you've got a congressman. He is actually the head of the House Rules Committee. So this is a serious congressman from Texas. They are discussing a bill, part of the farm bill, that I guess is addressing food stamps and trying to save some money on some food stamps here to try to assist with bringing down our deficit. And of course, the Democrats don't want any cuts in anything, of course. So he made numerous points yesterday, over the course of about an hour's worth of back and forth on the House floor, about how one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that only people who are supposed to get food stamps are getting food stamps, which I think most Americans would agree with. And in particular, he wants to make sure that rapists, pedophiles, and murderers who have been convicted of these crimes, not people that are just rumored or suspected, people that are convicted of such crimes, felons, are not receiving food stamps. And I think most Americans would agree with that. So what Thomas Roberts of MSNBC and his folks decided to do is they decided to cherry pick snippets of various things that he said throughout the course of the day on Wednesday during the debate on the issue, and make it appear that he was accusing food stamp users of being rapists, murderers, and pedophiles. No, that's not what he was doing.
Well,
he was saying that we should just...
Let's play exactly what he said. We heard the distortion. We heard the selective editing together of the snippets of every time he said rapists and murderers and food stamp recipients. Here's what he actually said. Here's cut 14.
The president's inability to lead is what is causing this country to have massive unemployment and a GDP rate of about 1.5%. It is a nightmare for people. So I do understand that we have those in our midst who are in trouble. I don't think this bill is ever aimed at, and we shouldn't try and say that it would be aimed at the disabled, mothers with children. That's not what we're trying to accomplish here. What we're trying to accomplish is to end eligibility of food stamps that compete against those families, those needy families that we talked about, for rapists, pedophiles, and murderers. That's why you see members of the Democratic Party coming down here today, and they're saying we're going to take it away from other people. No, rapists, pedophiles, murderers.
Right. So he specifically went out of his way in context to say we want to protect the needy, the mothers, the children, and we don't want specifically to give it to rapists, pedophiles, and murderers. He never said or implied that most or all or any percentage of people getting him are rapists, murderers, and pedophiles.
This is really disgusting what they've done here. And I think that this is conceivably, in the past couple of years, the seventh instance of MSNBC or NBC selectively editing what someone said or what transpired to totally change the context or totally changed what was being said. This is an outrage. Okay, and I'm not going to jump up and down and pound the table here, although I'd like to. This is disgusting. MSNBC and NBC are almost routinely doing this. We're catching them now about once a month or once every couple of months doing something like this. Are they going to ever stop this? Are the heads of NBC going to contact these folks and say, wait a minute, this is unacceptable, you have to stop doing this, or you're all going to get fired? I mean, at this point in time, this should not be a hand slap anymore. Okay? Someone needs to get fired as a result of this so that it will stop. Because if it wasn't for me, and if it wasn't for this was initially discovered by Noah Rothman over at Mediaite, if it wasn't for us exposing this, no one would know that that's not what the congressman said. And it's just, Steve, I realize I'm raising my voice. No, I'm really angry about this.
This is, first of all, this is your business. So it hits you, a little harder than it hits us, but we're all outraged. We applaud you for what you did. I applaud you for your emotion because this is outrageous, and I can't say that word enough. And also, George Zimmerman, I believe, has a lawsuit against NBC for doing the exact same thing. Maybe you might say it was a little more serious in nature because they edited a 9/11 tape to make it sound like he said there's a black guy, when he never said that.
Right. Well, he was asked. He was asked to specifically say what race he is.
Right, but he never brought it. They made it seem like he brought it up on his own.
They bleeped out that part. They bleeped out the question from the 9/11 operator asking him what race it was, what race Trayvon Martin was, to make him look like a racist. So look, this is continually. It's MSNBC and NBC that are doing this. I call on them to stop this. I call on them to fire somebody. Okay, now in reality, I do think that somebody involved in the Trayvon Martin thing had been released. I do think that there was,
I think a producer and a reporter got fired for that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is just, but maybe it has to be more serious than that. I mean, maybe you have to let go a whole bunch of people because clearly whoever did this didn't get the signal from the last folks that were fired that, hey, this is serious.
Well, no, I would hope, just like Zimmerman certainly filed the lawsuit, I would hope that at least Congressman Sessions contacts Phil Griffin or the president of NBC to make an issue of this. I'm sure Mitt Romney never even knew the way his remarks were distorted when he stopped and talked about a Wawa, made him look like an idiot. They edited that to selectively as well. So hopefully, Pete, I hope you get this to Pete Sessions, people, and if you need any, good. I hope they act on it. All right, let good work, great work as usual. I'm not surprised. Let's move ahead to to Barbara. Speaking of Wawa. Let's move ahead to Barbara Wawa here on the Steve Malzberg Show with Noel Sheppard. And here's the background here. Here's the backdrop. Bill Maher did a comedy stand-up routine, and again, he went after viciously Trigg, the son of Sarah Palin, the one who has Down syndrome, and apparently called him retarded or a retard. And here's the girls on The View. Actually, it's Barbara Walters defending, giving a pass to Bill Maher and describing how she herself had a sister who was considered, quote-unquote, retarded back when she was young, and she was glad when the name got changed to mentally challenged. And here's what she said. We pick it up in midstream, cut 16.
I think it was very hard for my sister and very hard for me even to this day to say, as I often had to, I have a retarded sister. My sister is retarded. Mentally challenged, they're physically challenged, whatever. I'm very grateful that it has changed. But there are people who don't know that, and they use the word retarded.
Do you think Bill Maher is one of those?
I don't know. I don't. I think that, unless you're a little more familiar, you don't even know the term mentally challenged.
So you don't think Bill Maher meant harm in calling Trigg retarded?
I want to know what his joke, what was he joking about that he had to even bring Trigg up?
We have other things here, and we have comedians who say, oh, well, I'm being funny. Do I think it was unfortunate that he did it? Yes, I do. Do I think that he realized what it was? No, I don't. I don't think he intended it to be mean-spirited. He likes to take on Sarah Palin. A lot of people do. She can fight back, and she did, and I'm glad she did.
Now, Sherry Sheppard said, and you couldn't really hear it in the crosstalk there, what was he talking about that he even had to bring up Trigg in the first place? Of course, Hasselbeck is acting like a conservative there. Good for her. And Whoopi, I think, was kind of on the fence about the whole thing. But Barbara Walters, who had a sister who was mentally challenged, gives Bill Maher, thinking that he's so ignorant, so unhip, so out of touch, so isolated, that he doesn't know that retarded is a forbidden word. What is she doing?
I was. This is another one of those, fall off the couch kind of moments. I have no idea why. Especially again, she's got a sister, so she should be more sensitive to this than anybody who does not have a sister or a close family member that's mentally challenged or handicapped. I don't understand why Barbara would do this, especially, as you said, you had Sherry Sheppard there who seemed to be sympathetic, strangely enough, to Palin. Whoopi was kind of being neutral. It's not that Whoopi got into a little trouble on Twitter for supposedly defending Maher. Whoopi did not defend Maher. Whoopi made a comment about how, when I was a kid, retarded wasn't necessarily a terrible thing to say. I mean, that we did call people in special class retarded, and she's right, and I remember that. I mean,
we called each other. If you say something that a friend considered stupid, you'd say that word. I mean, nobody was consciously trying to insult someone who had a mental, a mental challenge.
And you and I grew up in similar areas. We eventually called it just a tart, T-A-R-T. So that was short for retarded. We called people tarts. And it was okay. I mean, you could do it in class. Teachers weren't offended by it. It was okay. So that was kind of Whoopi's comment that, years ago, this was kind of a little bit more acceptable.
Right.
But yeah, so was the N-word years ago.
Right.
So it's a strange thing for her to say.
I mean, but Barbara Walters, look, with all due respect to her, maybe she should end it now, because her legend will never be diminished, because stuff like this will be ignored except from people like you and me. But it's outrageous that she could defend this creep who has constantly attacked Trigg and constantly attacked Sarah Palin with vicious things, and always writes it up by saying, hey, I'm a comedian.
Right. And let me tell you, I mean, irrespective of her politics, I have tremendous admiration and respect for Barbara Walters. She is an icon in the journalism industry, and certainly for women. And again, regardless of her politics, I love Barbara Walters. I've always enjoyed Barbara Walters. Politics offend me at times, but this was this was a fall off the chair moment. So what you're actually defending, and she said, well, Sarah can defend herself. That's true. Sarah can. She's an adult. Trigg is a mentally challenged little kid. He can't defend himself. Why is it that throughout the campaigns for years, children are supposed to be hands off? But the answer to that question is no. Only Democrat children are hands off.
Not the twins of
Republican
Bush.
Children are totally. I mean, we heard some terrible things said about Romney's kids.
Yep.
We heard terrible things said about. And not just Trigg. We heard things said about Bristol.
Yep.
I mean, it's just the double standard here with regard to how the children of politicians are treated is very offensive.
And Noel, you're still not allowed to say anything about little Chelsea.
No way. No way.
I mean, she's only 35 years old, and she's still little Chelsea. So let's not talk about her.
Well, by the way, no, I am going to say something about her. She's a horrible journalist. NBC made a big mistake hiring her.
Yeah, well, today she lamented the fact that, or yesterday, that her great-grandmother didn't have Planned Parenthood. She was an unwed mother, and she lamented the fact that she didn't have Planned Parenthood. And I'm saying, wait a minute. If she had Planned Parenthood and got an abortion, then you wouldn't be here, Chelsea, and neither would your mother. What are you talking about?
A little bit bizarre, isn't it?
It is so bizarre. All right, let's move on to this Obama. And here's something, of course, the media, as is alluded to in the cut here, has totally ignored Barack Obama confusing British Chancellor George Osborne with R&B singer Jeffrey Osborne. And here's a soundbite. Here's cut number 4.
it's not his fault if Barack Obama has forgotten his name. The funny thing is, the Obama stardust is such that we're willing to forgive him that sort of thing, as though we say, well, look, why should the most powerful man in the world be expected to remember the name of that pasty-faced chap doing the economic exposition? It would have been very different if it had been a previous American president. We've got George W. Bush up here. There, we'd be jumping on the Bush buffoon bandwagon and defending George Osborne. He didn't help himself.
Yeah, and that's a guy from Sky News talking about that, and he's wise enough to know that that's the case. And he didn't just confuse the Osbornes once. He constantly referred to the Prime Minister as Jeff or Jeffrey. Very embarrassing, but again, something that you know better than I assume went totally unreported.
Yeah, and by the way, not Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, which I guess here would be, let's say, Secretary of Treasury, or conceivably head of the Federal Reserve, that kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, and apparently from the British reports, Osborne was very, very uncomfortable. What was happening here is this is at the G8 summit, and Osborne is doing a presentation. And I guess Obama is there either on the panel, and he's making comments. He's saying, yeah, I agree with Jeffrey. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good point, Jeffrey. And his name is George. Yeah. Little bit bizarre. And this isn't, look, this isn't that big of a thing. So he mistook somebody. I mean, it's not that big of an issue.
It's the double
but
standard.
If it had been Bush,
yeah.
If it had been Romney, I mean, remember all of the heck that Romney got last year.
Oh, the gaffes, the gaffes.
And all he did, and it wasn't a gaffe. What did he say? He said, at this point in time, it appears that London isn't necessarily ready for the Olympics. Well, guess what? That's what the London press was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what all he was doing, was mimicking what the London press was saying, and our press went nuts. We can't win.
That's the thing. We can't win, and you know why we can't win, and you know why a presidential candidate will never win, and we don't have time to explore this, Noel, but I know you know it as well as I do, if not better. It's because the people running for president as a Republican, especially in the last two races, Romney and McCain, they either don't know, their advisors don't know, or don't care that they're also running against the media. And until they understand that everything they do is going to be twisted and perverted and turned around, and they have to not accept it but fight it, they're going to lose.
Yep.
They're going to lose. Hey, have a great weekend, my friend. Great to have you back, as always.
Thank you, sir.
And congratulations on that story. We'll follow it and see what happens with NBC.